Most people spend their lives trying to increase their income without ever asking the more important question: what happens when they stop working? You can have a great salary, a comfortable home, and a busy calendar, yet still be completely dependent on your next paycheck. That is the uncomfortable truth. Income can make you comfortable. Ownership is what can make you independent. Put your headphones on, because these truths work quietly. This isn't just about making money. It's about changing the way you see wealth. You're listening to Listen Beyond. For a long time, wealth was easy to recognize. Land, buildings, factories, stores, physical things you could see and touch. But the economy around us has changed. Today, enormous value can exist inside something as small as a laptop. A piece of software can serve millions. A digital product can be delivered anywhere in the world. A brand can influence people without owning a single physical store. A creator can build an audience that becomes more valuable over time. These are assets, even though you cannot hold them in your hands, and that creates a completely different opportunity. Imagine spending your time creating something once, then improving it until it becomes useful to thousands of people. Your effort is no longer limited to the number of hours you personally have available. The asset can carry your work further. That is leverage. But leverage does not mean effortless income. The internet is full of promises about quick money, passive income, and overnight success. Real wealth is much less exciting at the beginning. It starts with solving one real problem for one real person, then making the solution better, then finding a way to deliver it repeatedly. Slowly, your work begins to create something that exists beyond the moment you performed it. And that is the shift most people never make. They keep asking, how much can I earn? The better question is, what can I build that continues creating value after I'm done working today? Once you start asking that question, you stop looking at your skills as merely a way to get paid. You start looking at them as raw material for something you can own. And that is where the journey really begins. The first shift is to stop measuring your financial progress only by the money entering your bank account. Income tells you what your work is producing right now. It doesn't tell you what you are building for later. Two people can earn the same amount and end up in completely different positions. One spends everything that comes in and starts each month from zero. The other uses part of that income to build something they can own. The difference may not be visible today, but over time it becomes enormous. This is why the idea of assets matters so much. An asset is something that can hold or create value beyond the moment you worked for it. It could be an investment, a business system, intellectual property, a valuable brand, or a digital product. The form can change, but the principle stays the same. You are building something that has value independently of the hours you are currently selling. Think about a freelancer who charges $50 for every hour of work. If they stop working, the income stops. Now imagine that same person notices the same questions coming from clients again and again. Instead of answering them individually forever, they turn their knowledge into a practical resource that clients can access whenever they need it. Their expertise has moved from being only a service into something that can be reused. That is a small example, but the principle is much bigger. Wealth grows when your effort creates something that can be used more than once. And this changes how you should look at your everyday work. Don't just finish tasks. Notice patterns. Notice what you repeatedly explain. Notice what people repeatedly need. Notice which parts of your work could become systems, products, content, or intellectual property. Your current job can become more than a paycheck if you use what you learn from it to build something you eventually own. You don't have to abandon your current income to begin. You can use today's income as fuel for tomorrow's assets. The goal is not to work less immediately. The goal is to gradually make your effort more productive than your time alone. And once you understand that, an even bigger question appears. If income follows value, then what actually makes an asset valuable enough for people to pay for it? A valuable skill can make you money, but a valuable system can make that skill scale. That is the difference most people miss when they first think about digital wealth. You may already know how to design, write, teach, sell, code, analyze data, or solve a specific problem. But if every dollar depends on you personally performing that skill, your income still has a ceiling. The real opportunity begins when you turn what you know into a repeatable asset. Think about a consultant who spends every week explaining the same process to different clients. The knowledge is valuable, but the delivery is tied to the consultant's time. Now imagine that process being turned into a clear framework, a digital tool, a training program, or a documented system. The knowledge hasn't changed, the structure has. Suddenly, the same expertise can serve far more people. This is why digital assets can become powerful. They allow knowledge to be packaged, distributed, improved, and reused. But there is a critical distinction. Not everything you create becomes an asset. Something becomes valuable when it solves a problem people genuinely care about. A beautifully designed product nobody needs is still a weak business. A simple tool that saves someone 5 hours every week can be extremely valuable. So before asking what you should build, ask what people are already struggling with. What takes them too long? What confuses them? What mistakes cost them money? What information do they keep searching for? Those questions reveal opportunities hiding in plain sight. And there is another advantage here. When you solve the same type of problem repeatedly, you begin to understand it at a deeper level. You learn what people actually need, not what you assumed they needed. That knowledge makes the next version of your asset better. Your first attempt teaches you. Your second improves you. Your third can become something far more valuable. That is how digital wealth is often built, not from one brilliant idea, but from repeatedly turning useful knowledge into better solutions. And once you know what kind of value people are willing to pay for, the next challenge becomes much more practical: finding the right digital asset to build in the first place. The best digital asset ideas usually don't begin with a brilliant invention. They begin with noticing a problem that people already have. Look at your own day. What do people constantly complain about? What takes them too much time? What information do they struggle to understand? What mistakes keep costing them money? Every repeated frustration is a potential opportunity. You don't need to create something nobody has ever seen before. Sometimes the smartest business is simply a better solution to an existing problem. Think about a person who knows how to help small businesses organize their finances. They could sell their time by consulting one client at a time, or they could turn that knowledge into templates, calculators, guides, or software that helps hundreds of people solve the same problem. The knowledge stays the same. The delivery changes. That is where an ordinary skill can become a digital asset. But there is a mistake worth avoiding. People often choose ideas based on what they personally find interesting, rather than what others genuinely need. Your passion matters, but demand matters too. If nobody has a painful reason to solve a problem, even the most exciting product can struggle. Look for problems connected to money, time, convenience, uncertainty, performance, or meaningful personal outcomes. The stronger the problem, the more valuable the solution can become. And don't underestimate simple solutions. You might think a digital asset needs to be an advanced app or complicated platform. It could be a checklist that prevents expensive mistakes, a template that saves hours, a database that organizes information, a short course that removes confusion, a tool that makes a difficult task easier. Value doesn't come from complexity. It comes from the result. When you begin looking at the world this way, everyday frustrations start looking different. A repeated question can become content. A useful process can become a product. A specialized skill can become a system. The opportunities are often already around you. You just have to learn how to see them. And once you identify the right problem, the next challenge is turning that idea into something real instead of leaving it trapped inside your head.
Starting is harder than it looks because most people think their first digital asset needs to be impressive. It doesn't. It needs to be useful. You don't need a massive platform, a perfect brand, or thousands of followers before you create something. You need one clear problem and one practical solution. Imagine you know how to help people prepare for job interviews. Instead of waiting until you can build a huge career platform, you could start with a focused interview guide, a question database, or a simple preparation system. It may look small, but if it helps someone get a better result, it has real value. Your first asset is not supposed to prove that you've mastered business. It is supposed to prove that you can create something people actually want. And this is where perfection becomes dangerous. You can spend 6 months designing something privately, convinced that you're building the next big thing. Then you finally launch it and discover that people don't care. That hurts, but there is a smarter way. Build a simple version first. Put it in front of real people. Watch how they use it. Listen to what confuses them. Pay attention to what they ignore. Then improve it. Every interaction gives you information that imagination cannot provide. A customer question can reveal a missing feature. A complaint can reveal a weakness. A positive reaction can show you what deserves more attention. Your first version is not the final product. It is your first conversation with the market. And that changes how you should think about failure. If your first attempt doesn't work, you haven't necessarily lost. You may have discovered what not to build before investing far more money and time. The goal is not to create something perfect on the first try. The goal is to create something useful enough to learn from. Start small. Solve one problem. Make the result clear. Then improve based on reality. Because the moment someone can genuinely use what you created, you've crossed an important line. You are no longer just thinking about digital wealth. You have created your first real asset. And now the question becomes even more important. How do you make that asset so useful that people immediately recognize its value? People don't pay for how much work you put into a digital asset. They pay for what that asset does for them. That distinction can completely change the way you build. You could spend 3 months creating a 100-page guide, but if the reader finishes it still confused, the effort means very little. On the other hand, a simple 5-page system that helps someone solve a painful problem can be far more valuable. Real value is not measured by size. It is measured by impact. Think about the last time you paid for something online. You probably weren't buying information. You were buying a result. You wanted to save time, avoid a mistake, make a decision, learn faster, or reach an outcome without figuring everything out yourself. That is what your digital asset should provide. Don't ask, how much information can I include? Ask, how much unnecessary struggle can I remove? A useful template can eliminate hours of work. A clear framework can remove confusion. A simple tool can prevent an expensive mistake. A focused solution can turn a complicated process into a few obvious steps. And here's the uncomfortable part. Creators often build from their own perspective. They think about what they know, what they want to explain, and what they want to include. But customers experience value from a completely different perspective. They only care about the problem they are trying to solve. So step outside your own head. What does the person need before using your asset? What do they want after using it? Where are they likely to get stuck? What can you remove, simplify, or clarify? Those questions can transform an ordinary product into an experience people genuinely appreciate. And don't confuse complexity with quality. More features can create more friction. More information can create more confusion. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can give someone is a clear path forward. Your goal isn't to prove how much you know. Your goal is to make the customer's problem easier to solve. When an asset consistently creates that kind of result, people stop seeing it as just another digital product. They see it as a shortcut to something they care about. And before you spend even more time improving it, there's one question you need answered. Do people actually want what you've built? Before you spend months building something, you need evidence that people actually want it. An idea can sound brilliant in your head and still fail in the real world. That's why validation matters. You don't need thousands of customers to test an idea. You need real people who experience the problem you're trying to solve. Start by showing them a simple version of your solution. Ask what they struggle with. Listen to the words they use. Watch what they do. Because there's a huge difference between someone saying, "That sounds useful," and someone saying, "How can I get this?" The first is an opinion. The second is a signal. And real signals are what you need. This is where many creators make an expensive mistake. They spend months designing logos, building websites, choosing colors, and perfecting features before asking the market whether anyone actually cares. They fall in love with the product before the customer has had a chance to reject it. A smarter approach is to test the core idea first. Can you get people to sign up? Will they join a waitlist? Will they give you their email? Will they pay a small amount? Will they recommend it to someone else? Every one of these actions tells you more than 100 compliments from friends. And if people don't respond, that isn't necessarily bad news. It may mean the problem isn't painful enough. Maybe the audience is wrong. Maybe your offer is unclear. Maybe the solution is too complicated. Those discoveries can save you months of wasted effort. Think about the advantage of learning that information in 1 week instead of 6 months. Validation protects your time because it replaces assumptions with evidence. It also teaches you something deeper. Your idea is not your identity. If the market rejects your first version, it doesn't mean you failed as a person. It means you received useful information. Adjust the idea, change the offer, improve the solution. Test again. The goal is not to prove that your first idea was perfect. The goal is to discover what people genuinely value. And once you find that signal, you have something powerful to build around. But even the best digital asset can disappear if nobody knows it exists. You need attention from the right people. And that brings us to the next challenge: building an audience from nothing. Starting with zero can feel like shouting into an empty room. You create something useful, post it online, and nothing happens. No comments, no customers, maybe not even views. That silence can make you question whether your idea was ever worth building. But an audience is rarely created by one viral moment. It is built when the right people repeatedly find something useful in what you share. You don't need everyone to notice you. You need a specific group to recognize that you understand a problem they care about. Think about someone trying to become better at personal finance. They don't need another creator talking about everything from fitness to politics to cooking. They need someone who consistently helps them understand money in a clearer way. Relevance creates attention. Consistency creates familiarity. And usefulness creates trust. That is how an audience begins,
Not with followers, with recognition. So instead of asking, how do I get more views? Ask, who do I want to become useful to? That question forces you to understand a real person. What are they struggling with? What are they searching for at night? What mistakes are they trying to avoid? What result would make their life meaningfully better? When you understand those things, your content becomes easier to create because you're no longer guessing what to say. You are answering real problems. And there is another mistake worth avoiding. Don't confuse attention with loyalty. 1 million views can disappear in a day. A smaller group that trusts you can become far more valuable over time. An audience becomes an asset when people choose to return because they believe you can consistently help them. That trust is built through small interactions. One useful video, one honest explanation, one practical idea, then another. You don't need to convince people that you are an expert. You need to repeatedly demonstrate that you understand their problem. Eventually, something interesting happens. Your audience starts telling you what to build next. Their questions reveal demand. Their frustrations reveal opportunities. Their feedback can shape your products. Now you are no longer creating alone. You have a direct connection to the people you serve. But getting attention is only the first step. Once people notice you, you still need to earn their trust and move them toward action without sounding like every other person trying to sell online. And that is where smart marketing begins. Marketing becomes powerful when it stops feeling like marketing. People don't want to be pressured into buying something. They want to recognize that a solution is relevant to a problem they already have. That is why the strongest messages often begin with the customer's frustration, not the product. Instead of saying, "Here's my productivity system," imagine saying, "If you finish every workday exhausted, but still feel like the important things remain unfinished, your problem may not be a lack of discipline." That immediately creates recognition. The person thinks, "That's me." And once you have attention, the next job is trust. Show people how your solution works. Explain the problem clearly. Give them something useful before asking for anything. Demonstrate the result instead of making exaggerated promises. Trust grows when your audience repeatedly experiences value from you. This is also why clarity matters so much. If people cannot understand what you offer, they cannot understand why they should care. A strong offer should make 3 things obvious: who it is for, what problem it solves, and what outcome it helps create. Nothing complicated, just clarity. But there's another important principle. You don't need to convince everyone. Trying to make your product attractive to everybody usually makes the message weaker. The goal is to become extremely relevant to the people who actually need the solution. When the right person sees your message and immediately recognizes their own problem, you don't have to push nearly as hard. They are already interested. Your job is simply to help them understand the path forward. And that path should be easy to follow. If someone wants more information, they should know exactly where to go. If they want to try the product, the next step should be obvious. Every unnecessary step creates friction, and friction creates lost opportunities. Good marketing removes confusion between interest and action. But what happens when someone is interested today and still isn't ready to buy? You can't personally follow up with every person forever. That's when the next piece of the system becomes essential. Creating a process that continues building trust even when you're not there.
A strong digital business should not require you to personally convince every customer every single day.
Imagine someone discovering your content while you're asleep. They become curious, visit your page, learn more about your solution, and eventually decide to buy. You never had to personally explain everything to them. That is the purpose of a well-designed customer journey. It can guide someone from curiosity to understanding, then from understanding to trust,
and finally, toward a decision. But this process should never feel like manipulation. The goal is to reduce uncertainty. People hesitate when they don't understand the problem, the solution, or the person behind it. So each step should answer one question. What is the problem? Why does it matter? What can solve it? Why should I trust this solution? And what should I do next? Your content can create awareness. A free resource can demonstrate value. An email sequence can answer common questions. A product page can explain the offer clearly. Testimonials or real examples can provide proof. None of these elements needs to aggressively push a sale. Together, they simply make the decision easier. And this is where systems become powerful. If you answer the same questions manually every day, you are repeatedly spending your time on work that could potentially be handled once and reused. Create the explanation once, improve it, then let it continue helping people. But automation should never replace genuine value. A robotic message that exists only to sell will eventually destroy trust. The system should feel helpful because the thinking behind it is helpful. Every message should have a reason to exist. Teach something, remove an objection, show a result, clarify the next step. Then let the customer decide. When this process works, something changes. Your business no longer depends entirely on your physical presence. Your content keeps working. Your resources keep educating. Your system keeps guiding. And your product remains available even when you are doing something else. That is a powerful form of leverage. But once you have a reliable way to turn attention into customers, the next opportunity is even bigger. How can one customer create more value for the business without making the relationship feel forced?
A business becomes much stronger when it stops depending on a single product or a single transaction. But that doesn't mean creating dozens of random offers. It means understanding what your customers need at different stages of their journey. Imagine someone discovers your free content because they want to improve their finances. They may not be ready for an expensive solution immediately. They might first need a simple guide, then a deeper system, and eventually a more personalized service. The same core expertise can create different levels of value for the same person. That is the foundation of scalable monetization. Instead of constantly searching for new customers, you can serve existing customers more deeply as their needs evolve. But there is a critical rule. Every offer must solve a real problem. Adding products simply to increase revenue can destroy trust. The goal is not to squeeze more money from the same audience. The goal is to give people better solutions when they genuinely need them. Think about a fitness business. Someone might begin with free educational content, move to a beginner program, then purchase a personalized plan. Each offer solves a different level of the same underlying problem. The business grows because the customer grows. And that creates another advantage. Different products can create different levels of revenue without requiring you to reinvent the entire business every time. Your content attracts attention. Your entry-level offer builds trust. Your core product creates the main revenue. A premium offer can serve customers who want more speed, access, or personalization. The model becomes an ecosystem instead of a single transaction. But don't confuse more revenue streams with more complexity. If every new product creates another problem to manage, you may be building yourself another job. The smartest businesses usually expand from what already works. Listen to what customers ask for. Watch where they struggle. Notice what they want after they finish your existing product. Their next problem can reveal your next opportunity. And once those offers begin working together, another challenge appears. More customers and more products mean more repetitive work. If you personally handle every delivery, email, payment, and follow-up,
growth can quickly become exhausting. That's when the business needs something beyond more effort. It needs systems that can operate without you. The moment your business starts growing, a new problem appears. You have more customers, more orders, more messages, and more tasks competing for your attention. If you handle every single one yourself, growth can actually make your life harder. That's why automation matters. The goal isn't to remove yourself from the business completely. It's to remove yourself from repetitive work that doesn't require your personal attention. Think about the tasks you perform again and again. Sending the same welcome email, delivering the same digital product, answering the same basic question, scheduling the same type of appointment, following up with someone who showed interest. If a task follows the same pattern every time, there is a good chance it can become a system. Imagine someone purchases your product at 2 in the morning. The payment is processed automatically. Their access is delivered. A welcome message explains what to do next. Follow-up information arrives at the right time. You wake up, and the customer has already received a complete experience. That is leverage. But automation has to come at the right stage. If you automate a process before you understand it, you can simply make a bad experience happen faster. First, learn what customers need. Then create a reliable process. Then automate the repetitive parts. This keeps technology working for you instead of creating another layer of complexity. And there's a bigger benefit. Automation doesn't just save time, it gives you back attention. Instead of spending your day performing predictable tasks, you can focus on improving the product, creating better content, developing new opportunities, and making important decisions. That is where your time becomes more valuable. You are no longer using your best energy to keep the machine running. You are using it to make the machine better. But automation is only the beginning. Once your systems can handle more customers without requiring the same increase in effort, you have created the foundation for something much bigger. Now the question changes. You're no longer asking whether your digital asset can make money. You're asking whether the entire system can grow without breaking. That is where true scale begins. Growth is not simply getting more customers. It is making sure the business can handle more customers without losing quality, control, or your sanity. Imagine a digital product that works perfectly when you have 50 customers. Now imagine what happens when you suddenly have 5,000. If every customer creates another manual task, the business becomes a bottleneck. That is why serious scaling begins with systems, not excitement. First, identify what is already working. Which offer creates the strongest results? Which audience responds most consistently? Which marketing channel brings the right customers? Which process can be repeated without sacrificing quality? Once you know the answers, stop trying to improve everything at once. Scale what already works. If one type of content consistently attracts qualified customers, create more of it. If one offer converts better than the others, improve that offer before launching something completely new. If customers keep asking for the same solution, make that solution easier to access. Scaling is often less about discovering something new and more about multiplying something proven. But there is a hidden danger. More revenue can make a business look healthier than it really is. Sales can increase while profits shrink. Customers can increase while service quality falls. Your workload can double while your freedom disappears. That is not successful scaling. Real scale means the business becomes more efficient as it grows. Systems become stronger. Processes become clearer. Technology handles predictable work. Your role shifts toward decisions that actually require your judgment. And this is where numbers become important. You need to know what each customer is worth, what it costs to acquire them, which products generate the most profit, and where money is being wasted. Without those numbers, growth becomes guesswork.
The goal isn't simply to reach a huge monthly revenue number. It is to build a business where increased revenue creates increased stability and freedom. When that happens, your digital asset stops being just a source of income. It becomes a real business system with the potential to operate at a much larger level. But greater income creates another responsibility. The more valuable your business becomes, the more important it becomes to protect what you have built. Making money from a digital asset is one achievement. Keeping that asset valuable when the world changes is another. A business can be growing today and still become vulnerable tomorrow if everything depends on one platform, one traffic source, or one customer group. Imagine building your entire audience on a platform you don't control. Then the algorithm changes, your reach drops, and suddenly the business feels completely different. That is why ownership matters. Don't just build attention, build relationships you can maintain. Don't rely on one source of customers. Create multiple ways for people to discover your work. And don't let every dollar of profit disappear into a more expensive lifestyle. When income rises, it is tempting to immediately increase your spending. But higher income does not automatically mean greater wealth. If your expenses rise just as quickly, you may simply become more expensive to maintain. Real wealth creates options. It gives you the ability to handle uncertainty without panicking. It allows you to reinvest in the things that create future value. So when your digital asset begins producing more income, ask 3 questions. What should I protect? What should I reinvest? And what should I keep? Protect the relationships, systems, intellectual property, and reputation that make the business valuable. Reinvest into improvements that can increase future value. And keep enough of the gains to create financial breathing room. There is also another form of protection that people often ignore: adaptability. Technology will change, platforms will change, customer behavior will change. The strategy that works today may not work forever. So don't become emotionally attached to one method. Become attached to the ability to learn and adapt. A strong asset is not one that never changes. It is one that can evolve while remaining useful. And that mindset becomes especially important once the business starts giving you something more valuable than money: choice. Because eventually, the real measure of success is not how much you can earn. It is how much control you have over your time, your decisions, and the direction of your life. Freedom is not simply having enough money to stop working. It is having enough control over your life that you can choose what deserves your time. That distinction matters because it changes the reason you build wealth in the first place. If the only goal is to make more money, there is always another number to chase, another product, another customer, another milestone. But if the goal is freedom, money becomes a tool instead of the destination. Imagine waking up and realizing you don't have to accept every opportunity just because you need the income. You can choose which projects matter. You can spend more time with people you care about. You can learn something simply because you are curious. You can build something because it matters to you, not because you are desperate for the next paycheck. That is what ownership can create. But freedom also creates responsibility. Once you have more control over your time, you have to decide what you actually want to do with it. And that question can be surprisingly difficult. Most people spend years being told what success should look like: more money, a bigger house, a better title, more recognition. Then they finally achieve some of it and discover that the feeling doesn't last. The deeper form of wealth is the ability to direct your resources toward something meaningful. Your money can buy time. Your knowledge can create opportunities. Your business can solve problems. Your audience can amplify ideas. Your assets can continue creating value long after the original effort is finished.
That is where wealth becomes bigger than personal comfort. It can become impact. Maybe you use your resources to help your family. Maybe you teach what you have learned. Maybe you create jobs. Maybe you build something that makes another person's life easier. Your legacy doesn't have to be famous. It can simply be useful. And that may be the most important realization of the entire journey. The purpose of building assets is not to escape life. It is to gain enough freedom to live it intentionally. Because once your income no longer controls every decision, you finally get to ask the question that money alone can never answer. What kind of life is actually worth building?
The life you want does not begin when you finally reach a certain income number. It begins with the things you choose to build today. A skill you develop, a problem you learn to solve, a product you create, a relationship you strengthen, an audience you earn, a system you improve. These may look small in the beginning, but they can become the foundation of something much bigger. That is the real lesson behind building assets. You are not simply trying to make more money, you are trying to make your effort accumulate. Instead of starting from zero every morning, you build something that carries yesterday's work into tomorrow. Your content can keep reaching people. Your product can keep solving problems. Your systems can keep delivering results. Your knowledge can keep creating opportunities. And over time, those pieces can begin working together. But none of this requires you to become someone else overnight. You can start with what you already know. Look at your experience. Look at the problems you understand. Look at the questions people repeatedly ask you. Somewhere inside those things may be the beginning of an asset. The first version may be small. The audience may be tiny. The income may be almost nothing. That doesn't make it meaningless. Every valuable asset starts before the market recognizes its value. What matters is whether you keep improving it. Keep listening. Keep learning. Keep building. Because the biggest financial shift may happen long before the money arrives. It happens when you stop seeing yourself only as someone who earns and start seeing yourself as someone who creates and owns. Your paycheck can support your present. Your assets can help shape your future. And the most powerful part is that you don't need to choose between them. You can use the income you have today to build the ownership you want tomorrow. So when you close this video, don't just remember another collection of ideas. Look at your own life differently. Ask yourself what knowledge you have that could become valuable, what problem you could solve, what system you could create, what small asset you could start building this week. Because wealth rarely begins with a dramatic breakthrough. It begins with one useful thing, created consistently, improved patiently, and owned intentionally. And once you understand that, you're no longer waiting for wealth to happen to you. You're building the conditions for it to happen through you.
What if the real measure of wealth is not what you can afford, but what you no longer have to sacrifice? Your time, your choices, your peace of mind, your ability to say no. That is why building assets matters. The goal was never simply to collect more money. It was to create something that could keep producing value beyond the hours you personally work. A skill can become a product. A product can become a system. A system can become a business. A business can create freedom. And freedom gives you the ability to decide what your life is actually about. But remember, none of this happens because you found one secret strategy. It happens because you keep building. One useful idea, one solved problem, one customer, one improvement, then another. Over time, those small actions can become something much larger than they appeared at the beginning. So don't ask yourself, how can I make more money this month? Ask yourself, what can I create today that could still be valuable years from now? That question can change the way you spend your time. It can change what you learn. It can change what you create. And eventually, it can change what you own. Your future does not have to depend entirely on how many hours you can sell. You can begin creating things that carry your effort forward. That is the real shift, from earning only for today to building for tomorrow. If this video changed the way you think about money, work, and ownership, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe to Listen Beyond for more powerful ideas inspired by the world's most influential books. And before you leave, write this in the comments. I'm building assets, not just income.